quick update video on the south line. This line has caused us a lot of grief as far as time and overall labor. This is the southwest pin. You can see we've put up electrified high tensile fencing, and here is the new and improved south line. This south line by far was the most laborious to open up and get fence ready. This was the thickest line. This line had not been touched at all for probably over 30 years easily, and it also does not adjoin any other inhabited properties. So all that is a recipe for pure wilderness, and that's exactly what we ran into along this line. Hence the reason why the updates on the southern line have been so slow in coming and far and few between. And this is a big jump from our last southern line video. You can see the fence has been installed. It is a high tensile style fence, smooth wire, 12.5 gauge, 7 strands, 5 strands of which are hot. And the fence post spacing along this line is not as liberal as in other spots because of the undulation in the terrain. But you can see how many trees we've had to fell in here, and you can see the size of those trees. At some point there was more than a dozen trees. After we had thought we were finished, I think an additional 12 trees had to come down or so. Lots of brush pile and debris through here, which we're going to start cleaning up. The season for your fall planting is coming for things such as clover, ryegrass, your cool legumes that are nitrogen fixers. So we're going to try to prep this soil in here to get something going, and the priority is for good bee pasture for a honey crop, as well as soil amendment. So what we're thinking is sweet clover with Dixie crimson clover and ryegrass. If we can get it raked and worked in, that should give us a good start to get something to hold. And then all this area in here is going to be planted again in the spring. Back to the fence line here. The fence is up. Like I said, this line definitely started to put us behind schedule and start really making us question this whole process. But that's where you got to dig deep and push through. And I'm always talking about daily achievable goals to keep me going. And when you make a daily achievable goal and you don't achieve it, not only on the first day, but after the third or fourth day, you start to get a little down. But you've got to push through and keep going. Now when you look back at what you've done, it's pretty amazing. Just a single person, a man and a wife team on the weekends, and then a single person during the week, what you can achieve if you just put your head down and keep going forward. With this type of work is easy to do that. You just keep forward momentum going, and you just keep felling and chopping and whacking some more, and eventually you just hack you through, and then you're down to the basically bare earth here. Now, that's not necessarily the end goal or the most desirable way to do this for everyone, but for us, we had to clear the south line and get this fence up because of the implications of agricultural exemption on taxation. What people have to realize is that taxes and carrying costs are a big concern for all types of farmers, but for small-time farmers, you want to control as much as you can, and if you can control your taxation, you do so. So having this fenced and getting a bona fide agricultural concern going will decrease our taxation bill annually. So that's, the fence becomes priority, and all your planned out, careful planning has to dovetail in with that, which this did. When we looked at our overall plan for the property, the south line was always going to be pretty much cleared, and this was where the pasturing and pasture development was going to begin. And when I say pasture, I'm not talking about just a total open green grass pasture. We're talking about good goat forage pasture, as well as honeybee for honey crop, because that's our two major livestock concerns here. Now here's an interesting part of the fence. With the high tensile fencing, you put it up and then you ratchet it down to the strength that you want. And that's what these ratchets are for here, is to tension the line, and this spring is to gauge your tension. These springs, you ratchet them and they will compress, and when they compress to a certain distance, 7.5 inches, that's 250 pounds of tension on this line. So you do that throughout the system, and I know there's ways to do it a little neater and get it all to match up perfectly, and also only use 1 or 2 tension springs, but I'm just a single person here, and I didn't get the cuts and all that stuff perfect, so I just went ahead and tensioned every single hot line properly, because that is important to have the proper tension on that, and I don't want a full 250 pounds on the hot lines. And then the non-spring lines, the bottom one and the second one down, are ground lines, and that goes back to the main charger. So complete your line, and as close to the middle of the total fence run length is where you put your springs, and then you ratchet them down and tension them up. And again, 250 pounds is the ideal tension. On electric fencing, it can be lower due to the fact that the fence is electrified, and any animals that touch the fence should be fleeing the fence, so the strain will not be as high, and the tension, overall tension of the fence and resistance it offers, doesn't have to be as high. So that's the other advantage of electrifying your high tensile fencing, is your resistance, your tension, the tension on the lines does not have to be as high, and if you have less tension, you have less stress overall. But I will say this is a 7-strand system, and you can see this is a single H brace. I only put a single up front because the other brace up the line there where the gate is very close to this, probably less than 300. So they kind of de-stress each other or support each other. So I didn't do a double H, but in the back where this run comes to its end and terminates, I double H brace that. And I will tell you what, tensioning 7 strands of high tensile to right around 200 to 250 pounds moved 8-inch posts that were hand set with sackcrete. So that's a lot of pressure on those posts. So the main takeaway from that was, if you do high tensile fencing, you're going to save a lot of your costs with the lack of posts in between your corners, but you definitely cannot skimp on your corner braces. You want to sink your money into your corners. Use full, I wouldn't think of doing anything less than a full 8-inch corner post with 6-inch H brace offset post and 4-inch diameter crossbeam. That's as beefy as you can pretty much get. That fence, when I ratcheted it down, moved, and I'm talking those corner posts that were at radical angles. They were angled, and it looked pretty radical when you looked at them sitting there 3 inches offset. But that 3-inch offset came in. Trust me on that. It came in, and we're not talking 1/4 of an inch. That 3-inch offset came in probably close to an inch. So there you go. If you think you can skimp on your corners with the high tensile, think again. Just wanted to update where we were, and we're going to move forward from here.